Good evening. The Task Force on Small and Emergency Business meeting is called to order. Let me introduce the committee members who are here. The council committee members are myself as chair, is Councilman James Flory. To my left is the representative from the African American Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Tyler Jamerson. Councilwoman Yvette Fuller is here as well. There's no one here from the Shreveport Chamber of Commerce or the Minority Business Association. So, but we do have a quorum, so we can move forward. So let me start by thanking you for being here. Mr. Pratt, Mr. English, and to the other partners in the consortium, the Gateway Development Consortium. Your presence here is an honor. Your return present is an honor because approximately 18 months ago, you came before this body with the idea, with an idea, a proposal, if you will, to offer this city a public-private partnership proposal where you would develop the Cross Bayou Point area. Now let me say that this meeting was scheduled a little over a month ago, and it was going to be in conjunction with our the council's administrative conference. We was going to have the presentation to my committee, and then we was going to move into the executive session of our conference, where I was going to introduce you to the full council. But our first meeting in November, some of the council members wanted to go on vacation. And so the council decided that we will move our meeting up to the 21st, which was last Friday, where we had our meeting that would have been scheduled for today and tomorrow. But nevertheless, we're here. We didn't notify you because we knew you had such an itinerary, your plans, and we did not feel that was appropriate to reschedule this meeting, because what we're going to do here today is pretty make a presentation to this committee, and then this committee will ask whatever questions we have, and then at the appropriate time we'll present it to the full council. Now, like I said, on April 18th when he was here, you made a very impressive presentation. You asked the council at that time to enter into a non-binding MOU so that you would have leverage when you left here to seek and recruit the resources and investors that you felt would be appropriate and necessary to move forward. The previous council, this is a new council, was elected in December of last year and took office at the first of this year. But the last council, previous council in which I was on, granted you a non-binding MOU with the stipulation that within a reasonable time frame, you would come back and present to this body a very detailed and complete analysis of what would take to move this project forward. I got a call from Mr. English a month ago, basically, and he told me that he had seeked and felt like he had honored our request that he would have all the representatives that are involved in this project to come forward and make their position known to this body and as well to the council on how we can seek to move forward. Now, we're here today to hear that presentation. So, are there any committee members? Joining us is Ms. Bonnie Moore, who's the Director of our Community Development, who's also a committee member. Brandon Fell is our Director of Economic Development. He's also joined us. Thank you. Are there any remarks from committee members at this time? If none, then let me call Mr. English, Mr. Pratt, whichever one want to start, to come forward and lead us through this presentation.
Councilman Bradford and the entire Task Force on Small Emerging Business, it is an honor to be here with you today.
I'm sorry, Mr. English. Hold
Go ahead.
1 second. Do everybody have a copy of the minutes of the previous meeting? Do everybody have a, Jack, do everybody have a copy of the minutes? Okay. Have you reviewed those minutes? Okay. The motion is in order to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting. It's been moved by Councilman Flory, seconded by Mr. Jameson. Are there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. And also joining us, I failed to introduce the administrative staff that's here. Our CEO, Mrs. Jones Fields, is with us, as well as the mayor's executive officer, Mrs. Attorney Fleming. Thank you all. Thank you both for coming as well. Okay, you may proceed, Mr.
We're honored to be here with you today. We took the non-binding MOU that we executed with you very seriously, and we have went back and we have tried to honor that. Some of the top companies and professionals across the country has flew in here today to give you this presentation. We intend to go very, very detailed so that because of the nature and size and scope and importance that we're asking you here today to do. We're here to make a deal. We have very much approached this as a business deal. From the very beginning, we had a couple of things that we needed to do. The first thing that we needed to do was we needed to be able to understand this project, and we needed to be able to understand every aspect of this project so that we could go out and we could entice investors who would be willing to come in and partner with us to invest in this project. One of the things that we said to the city of it was, and we think this project and the team that we have assembled will prove that is that Shreveport is competing across the world for capital. Capital is global. It does not care about location. It does not care about race. It does not care about local politics. It does not care about agendas. Capital is looking for places that are stable, where communities are working together, and where they can get a return on their investment. And while we have went out and we have brought that capital back to the table, the biggest and most important investor that we have is the city of Shreveport. This is a business deal. We're not looking for a giver. We're not looking for anybody to give us anything. We're not looking for any donations. When we sat down at the end of this presentation, we would have explained to you in great detail what the return on investment will be for the citizens and the taxpayers of this city. So we're going to step right out and go to the next one. So what I want to do right now is introduce our team, and some of the key senior leaders will be talking to you today. So Gateway Development Consortium is exactly that. It's a consortium of companies and individuals from across the country that we have assembled in order to do this project. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right on this end, and I'm going to introduce some people, and you can stand up, and if I've gotten to be an old man and I'm bad with names, so if I misuse the names, blame it on my age and not my mind. So right here is my old dear friend, Dominique Ozan, with Ozan Construction. They're out of Cleveland, Ohio. Ozan Construction is one of the oldest and largest minority firms in the country. Dominique is the third generation Ozan to lead this company, and he is the individual that really came in and pulled our design build team together, and he will be also addressing you today. Next, we have Grace Abear, Mr. Jerry Abear, and Alex. Alex, tell me your last name. Desotex. See, I was never going to get that right. They are the beautiful images and renderings that you see here. They worked on it in some detail. They helped put the master plan together, and Alex will also be presenting to you today. We have Mr. Paul Pratt, who everybody knows, who's our local partner, and he's just been, he was the person that said, got us on this journey. We need to do something for our city, and we called his arms. We have Mr. Marty Berger, who is with Sabre Advisory Funds. He is the man of the hour. He got the money, and he's going to be talking to you about his company. We're excited to have him. We have Mr. Justin Papadakis with the United Soccer League. He is the CEO of the United Soccer League, and he's going to talk to you about professional soccer and what that means for the city of Shreveport. We have my dear friend, Mr. Scott Messner, who you know. He's been with us several times. Scott is presently developing 1 million square feet in Manhattan. He has $300 million in buildings in the ground going up, and if you get to New York in the next couple of months, if you stop at 125th Street, you'll see his skyline, how he's changing the skyline of Harlem. We have my dear friend, Mr. Otis Ellis with J.P. Morgan Chase. J.P. Morgan Chase, when I met with Otis, he asked me, what can I do? I said, I need you to just come sit in the room with us and help guide us. And he has bought J.P. Morgan Chase and all of their infrastructure of a global company to help us figure this deal out. We have our two local partners, Roxanne and Deborah, the heart and soul of our group. Roxanne and Deborah came to us and they challenged us and they asked us, what about the community? When you talk about a public-private partnership, there's really three partners. And the most important partner is not the private dollars, because money, there's a lot of opportunities. It's not local government, it's the community. They have held over 100 meetings in the community with this project. They really help us understand. Roxanne will be making a presentation to you today. Thank you. We have Mr. Reginald Mims, who many of you know, who I believe is the top land use expert in the city of Shreveport. He has helped us understand the land use of this project. You cannot have a project of this size and scope without first understanding all of the land use issues that it involves, and he's brought decades of experience to that table. Over here we have hiding from you is Reverend Theron Jackson, who you all know. He is the engine. He's the person that I'm always calling saying, you got to make this happen, and we would not be here without him. We have Mr. Al Tyndall. Stand up, Al. Al Tyndall is one of the most prominent attorneys in this country. He was one of the first African-American lawyers in the country to manage a major law firm. He's one of the top financial lawyers in the country, and he has been a valuable resource for us. We have Mr. Kevin Sanders, who graduated from the greatest law school in the country, Tulane, and he is the former city attorney for the city of Alexandria. He's an expert in municipal law, so he's really helped us understand all of the laws that we have to deal with. Sitting in the back is Ms. Donnette Dunbar with Dash Media, and I have to say I'm biased. She is one of the top PR executives in the country, and she has certainly, for all practical purposes, run this project. I have Mr. Morris Clark, also a graduate of the greatest law school in the country, Tulane, and one of my oldest and dearest friends, to let you know that God was with us on this project. He retired from Marathon Oil a couple of months ago as a treasurer of Marathon Oil. He is one of the top and most skilled professionals in the world on assembling global capital and understanding these kinds of deals, and he has come on board to help us, so we're really happy here. I have my dear friend here out of New York City, Rich Goetlich. Yes, I messed it up. Rich has taken me by the hand and taught me real estate from the ground up and has been just a key person in helping us raise the capital in this project. We have Mr. Ricky Hall, who many of you know. Ricky and I grew up in the same neighborhood of Martin Luther King. I stand up, I embarrass him. I knew him when he was a little snotty-nosed kid, and he is now just become one of the pillars of this community and certainly one of the most successful businessmen in the city. We have Mr. Desi Sprouls, our civil engineer. At every step of the way, this was like a train leaving New York City, and at every step of the way, somebody got on the train. We got to the point where we needed a civil engineer. And everybody told us that the best civil engineer we need was Desi Sprouls. We got on the phone, we called Desi. He says, I'm in. And his company, Forte Talbot, has just been unbelievable, again, in helping us understand the technical parts of this deal. We needed to understand the municipal, we needed a municipal advisor. I went out and I did a global search, and it came back and it told me that the best municipal advisor in the country was MuniCap. I reached out and I sent an email to Mr. Keenan Rice and said, we're doing a project in Shreveport, Louisiana. We need your help. He immediately came on board. He will today, as a part of his presentation, he will explain to you what the return on investment of what we're asking you for here today. And we also have Devin Whitlock, who is an associate who has worked extremely hard on this project. I think I got everybody. Okay, excellent. Can we go to the next screen? We went back and we pulled every study that we could find on this project. The city, the Downtown Development Authority, and the parish has spent tens of millions or thousands of dollars over the decades studying downtown and Cross Bayou. But the document that we came to understand, of which we based this whole deal on, was the 2010 master plan, the 2030 master plan that was passed in 2010. The citizens cost well over $2 million, spent months meeting with the citizens of what they wanted downtown and Cross Bayou to be, and we tried to be religiously and follow that roadmap. In 1996, the voters of this city passed a bond issue over $5 million directing the city to buy the land on Cross Bayou for the purposes of creating a public-private partnership in order to develop it. The city, this administration and previous administrations began buying that property. Some administrations have been more aggressive than others, but the citizens have spoke. They want Cross Bayou developed. And how you know whether or not the citizens are serious, they put their money where their mouth was. On a public vote, they voted to set aside taxpayer dollars in order to buy the land. And what they wanted to do was to develop Cross Bayou into a walkable, livable neighborhood and to help revitalize the central business district. And that is exactly what they've done. So what are we asking for? I'm going to start at the bottom. We're asking the city of Shreveport to assemble an 88-acre brownfield site, a toxic brownfield site, anchored by a scrapyard that has been vacant, certainly in my lifetime, of which most of it has been vacant since the Civil War. The citizens obviously, I say to you again, the citizens have already told you that that's what they wanted you to do. The citizens set aside funds that that's what they wanted you to do. But the reality of it is now that the cat is out of the bag, and even if we now wanted to purchase some of that land, we would be held in a ransom on us, because that land, the mere fact that we're here today to you, that land has tripled in value. So the city has the ability of what lands it has not already assembled, it has the ability to finish assembling that land. We then want you to assemble a TIF, a tax incremental financing district, in order to fund upwards of $132 million in public infrastructure. Again, Keenan will take you through in great detail of what a TIF is, what it requires the city to do, why we need the TIF, and what the benefits of it is. And we're then going to ask the city to designate GDC and Sabre as master developers of this site. And what will GDC do? We will undertake to design, finance, and build a criminal justice complex. As you know, Caddo Parish entered into a non-binding MOU with us also. GDC will undertake to design, finance, and build a new state office building. We met with the governor last year this time. J.P. Morgan Chase and others flew in, and what the governor said to us was, if the city will get on board and or the parish will get on board, we will get on board. State Representative Sam Jenkins has been a strong ally in helping us work with the state, and once we complete and finalize our relationship with the city, we would then go immediately to the state to finalize and then the parish to finalize. We told you GDC will undertake to develop 500 new residential units. That's what we promised you in the non-binding MOU. Alex will talk about it. On this site, we believe we can get closer between 2,500 to 3,000 units on the entire site, but as a part of phase one, we will develop 500 new residential units. We will create a working relationship with the central business district, creating shuttle services and cooperation marketing and et cetera. My partner, Marty will talk to you about that. This project does not work if there's not a cooperative relationship between us and the central business district. We cannot create an isolated, no matter how spectacular a project we build, no matter if we hit every mark that we said we're going to hit, this project will not work if the central business district is not revived along with us. But in order to do that, they have to become willing partners with us also. And Marty Berger will go into deeper detail about our experience and how we feel about that. GDC will fund all of these properties with private equity and debt, but as you also know, the site has been designated as an opportunity zone, and there is an opportunity for us to do that. GDC will undertake to partner with the United Soccer League to develop a new municipal sports and entertainment venue with public utilizations, and Justin will talk with you about that also. Next slide. So I'm now going to turn this over to Alex, and he will take you through the master plan of the sites, and I hopefully will give you an understanding of how and why we ended up and the input that we had to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, and thank everybody for having us here today. Larry mentioned earlier, my name is Alex Desotels with Grace Hebert Curtis Architects, and my partner Jerry Hebert. We are the design portion of the design build team for this project. When we first got approached probably about a year ago, they said that we're looking at some property in Shreveport, Louisiana, and that's in the central business district, and it's on the water. We said, wow, that's spectacular. You don't get that hardly anywhere in the world, that you have such prime property in the central business district on the water. So we said, well, how are we going to create a bridge between the water, the central business district, so that everybody can enjoy it? So what we did was we had the community come together with the design team, and we did several design charrettes. We came up several times and met with the people and moved things around, and so we did several iterations, and this is the one, the most recent one that we've come up with, where what we want to do is bring people from Cross Barrier Point into the central business district and vice versa. And so what we have here, if you look at the screen, your bottom, I guess the bottom portion of your screen is the Justice Center, the some housing, parking garage, as well as the state office buildings. Just north of that is the multi-purpose sports complex, and then which is right below the Waterworks Museum, and then above that we're proposing a STEM school or something of the likes. Along the river would be multi-family housing, and along Red River would be luxury housing. This is a 3D rendering of the Cross Bayou Point and Central Business District together, what it might look like. This is by no means a final design. This is the conglomerate idea of the entire team and members from the community that we've come up with. Yeah. The A-frame truss bridge is something that's very unique to this area. I believe there's only 2 of these in the world, and one of them is right here in Shreveport, Louisiana. What we're planning on doing is renovating it and creating somewhat of a public park almost around it, where we would create maybe an amphitheater, places where you can have markets and fairs and stuff like that. Behind it is the, looking towards Red River, would be the luxury condo units. This image shows the multi-sports complex, which we're partnering with the USL, which is the United Soccer League. And this would not be used strictly for the soccer league. This would also be used for local football games. You can have concerts here. We're proposing this to be something where you can hold events 300 days a year and really bring people towards downtown. Behind it is multifamily housing, and you can see the Justice Center and the State Office Building behind it as well. These are renderings that are looking down McNeil Street towards Cross Bayou. The State Office Building to your right and the Justice Center to your left. These are just renderings of what we've come up with. Again, this is not no means a final rendering of what this may wind up being. And this is a quick snapshot of building square footages, unit counts, as well as parking, some garage parking, some surface parking. You don't want to bore you with all the details right here. We can certainly give this to you and go over it in more detail later if you'd like. And now I'd like to hand it over to Marty Berger.
Excuse me, Councilman, I don't know whether or not the committee members would have questions of any of the, how do you want to handle it? You want to wait until the end? Yes. How do you want to handle that?
Yes, at the end,
okay.
We'll ask questions.
Mr. Marty Berger.
Yeah. Okay, back to the site plan.
So, I'm Marty Berger. I'm a principal of Sabre Real Estate Advisors. We're a New York-based real estate development firm and have been doing ground-up development for 30 years. That means that, in essence, for 30 years, we have taken land through the entitlement process, through the design process. We have financed it, built it, guaranteed completion, brought it to stabilization, and we own and operate it. Just 1 or 2 points before we go further. Firstly, the renderings and the pictures are exactly that. They're massing analyses. They're renderings. They might look too shiny. They might look too tall. They might look too colorful, but they're just massing analyses. And one of the steps that we go through is to create design guidelines so that the project takes on the flavor of the neighborhood in terms of materials and shapes and designs, et cetera. And the second thing I wanted to point out in regard to a clarification that Larry presented is that the public improvements, the infrastructure of $132 million, that's the totality at the full completion. But I want to make clear that that's not money that we're asking the city to outlay. That's money that we, as a private development company, would put into the ground. And in connection with the TIF, the tax incremental financing, only to the extent that we build a project and we increase the taxes more than they are today, would we then take a portion of those dollars and use it to repay or retire the debt that we create, that we assume, not the city, that we assume. And Keenan from Unicap will go into that in greater detail. So our firm specializes in creating jobs. Can you go back to that for a moment? Our firm specializes in creating jobs and creating tax revenue and creating the stimulus of economic growth and redevelopment. Our projects, which I'll show you in a minute, are close to CBDs or basically are CBDs by themselves. When I look at this site plan, and I think what I'd like you to focus on in a site plan is not to look at the components or the pieces, because I assure you between now and the day we put a shovel in the ground, they will change. The roads will be different, the directions will be different, the locations of the buildings will be different. But the common denominator, the most important thing, is that this is a pilot, no different than when you look at your stove and you see the little flame there and it just waits for the gas to come. What you're seeing here is a pilot that could ignite the central business district and start a rejuvenation, because it starts not with the idea of, let me increase taxes to fix my roads. It starts with the idea of, let me create revenue, new tax dollars, new jobs, new sales tax, from which I could then create and generate taxes to pay my roads. So when I look at this, that's what I see, and I hope that you do the same. If we can just go to the SABRE component. So we are doing ground-up development for 30 years. We have an unblemished track record of starting projects, completing projects on time and on budget. We have the in-house expertise. We've done all sorts of development. We've done assisted living that we built, own, and develop, skilled care nursing homes, planned unit developments, coastal marinas, low-rise, mid-rise, planned unit developments, multifamily, 5-story, 20-story, and 32 stories, and we've created villages. For each of these projects, we have used our own cash investment from partners as well, and procured debt that our company has guaranteed or the principals have personally guaranteed. If we can go on for a moment. Some of our projects are seen here, and they include the Ritz-Carlton residences in Coconut Grove, which is also a hotel. We were also the developer owner of the South Beach Ritz-Carlton Hotel. In Fort Myers, Florida, we purchased a site not too dissimilar than we have here at the Cross Bayou. It was a 32-acre boat yard that was contaminated with decades of lead, turpentine, paint, oil that mitigated into the ground. And we received approvals for 5 32-story residential towers and 300 boat slips. And to date, we've built the boat slips, and we've built 2 towers, and they're sold out. They were condominium projects. To the right of that is 1800 Alton. That was a former gas station site that we remediated, and we built a 5-story building, which is retail on the first few floors and then parking. On the right of that is a skilled care nursing home. We serve 1,000 meals a day. We own a certificate of need, and we have a 100-person adult daycare center. It's been a world-class facility for over almost 15, 20 years now. On the bottom left is a mixed-use development that contains multifamily, hotel, retail, supermarkets, theaters, restaurants. It involved the remediation of a former chemical plant. We put in about $10, $12 million of off-site improvements, rebuilt roads, sewer lines, etc. On the right-hand side, and by the way, the Rivertown Square is on the left. That's about 800, 900,000 square feet on 17 acres. We have another site in downtown White Plains where we have 1 million square feet on 2 acres. We basically took all of those uses and put it vertical. And as you'll see in a few minutes, we have a similar project on 156 acres. The lower right-hand side is a project in Bogota, New Jersey. It's on the Hackensack River. It was a former Hess terminal station that required remediation. We raised the site 7 feet with fill, and then we created 456 multifamily units along with a walkway and a new riverfront corridor, if you can. This is a site that we have currently under development. It's the former New York Psychiatric Hospital. It's located on Route 9 in the town of Poughkeepsie in Dutchess County, New York. And it contained 56 buildings, 52 of which needed to be demolished. That included asbestos and demolition. On the top left, that's the north portion of the site, and we're keeping that main beautiful building in the front and converting it to a life center for education and arts and a theater. And on the right-hand side is the southern portion of the site that includes 50-some-odd buildings for demolition, including a 12-story former psychiatric facility, and that's well underway now. Next slide, please. We're turning that site into this mixed-use development, which is adjacent to Marist College, adjacent to Vassar College, near Culinary Institute, and the Vassar Brothers Medical Center. We went to them like a waiter and said, what do you need? And they told us that they need child daycare, a supermarket, quality restaurants, they needed a hotel, they needed housing for their staff, professors, and they needed a medical office building with an urgent care facility. So we basically went out and got all of that, and what you see now is that plan. It contains a 65,000 square foot supermarket, the first one in 10 miles within the site that's leased. We created a Main Street retail for the residents and the students, which, as you can imagine, includes Starbucks and Chipotle and Dairy Queen and Smoothie Queen, and we have all the kings and queens there. Burger King. It includes a 40,000 square foot medical office building, 300 multifamily homes which are oriented toward the nurses at Vassar Medical, the doctors, the staffs, the professors. We've created 450 senior-related housing units in the back, an assisted living, independent living, a 150-room hotel. We preserved 18 acres of the Great Lawn. That lawn was designed by Vox Olmsted, who did the Central Park, and 60 acres of open land. What we found there, as in similar to Cross Bayou, is that all of these uses like to be together, and you get one, you get the other. The seniors like to be close to the children. They like to be involved with smart people. They like to have intelligent conversations with staff and professors and students. The hotel benefits from the anchors nearby, the colleges, et cetera, and so on and so forth. And Cross Bayou has the opportunity to fit in and to share benefits and customers and users with downtown, as well as hopefully those that are coming downtown in the future. We have a lot of experience in remediation, and here are 4 examples very quickly. The Rivertown Square was built on the former Axo Nobel chemical site. We have 2 residential projects on Hess terminal stations, and we have acquired and redeveloped 4 blocks in downtown New Haven, Connecticut, where they were formerly car dealerships, and the soil was so toxic you put your hand in it and you burnt your hand. And we brought the first supermarket back to New Haven, Connecticut in 40 years. We did it in conjunction with a not-for-profit called the Retail Initiative that believes that supermarkets anchor downtown communities and partnered with us. And we built shopping centers and retail space in that community. So that's a little bit about Sabre and its company, and I'm happy to talk more about our company, and I'm also happy to talk about how the project can fit into the downtown when we get to the question and answer period. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Justin Papadakis, and as Larry mentioned, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the USL. Up on the screen, you can see the USL. We have five properties. The 2 top ones are our professional leagues, and through those leagues in this past 2019 season that just ended a couple weeks ago, we had over 3.1 million fans come to our matches. And we are very much looking forward to kicking off 2020. In particular, why we're here today is hopefully Shreveport can join our leagues in the near future. Sure. This is a map that shows our leagues across the country, and I think what distinguishes USL is a couple of things. First, our ownership. We have some of the top ownership from around the country, including top sports properties, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, and what is critical for us is local ownership. We think that for the success of the team, having a strong, committed local ownership that views the team as investment, but more importantly, a community asset, is critical to the success of the team, and which is why we've had tremendous growth over the past couple of years. and growth continues in the years ahead. Very critical for us is that, as I mentioned, having the team as a community asset, and a big part of that is the venue. Here, having a multi-use stadium that's anchored by a project that has places for families and fans to go eat and to go shop, to live and to work, creates an environment that is the critical thing that we look at is having a first-class fan experience. We think that when we look across all of our teams, having a first-class fan experience for our communities, so they don't have to drive 1 hour or 2 hour to have entertainment that's typically significantly more expensive, that within their communities, they week in, week out, they can go with their families and have a wonderful night and eat and shop. Another interesting thing about soccer, unlike baseball or football, is that the games are a 2-hour fixed window. And so that's critical because families and millennials can go go out and eat before the game, and they know 2 hours later they can go out afterwards. So you really have a significant increase in economic activity because of how the sport is oriented. And I think the last slide, as mentioned earlier, this is a multi-use venue. And so when beyond the 25 dates that the team would play, we want to structure this venue in a way that makes it available to the community. So for the school district, whether it's football games or high school soccer games, concerts, international matches, this venue is a community asset and one that we need to have to drive economic activity for this project and for the CBD. So again, thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. We are very much looking forward to being part of this amazing team that Larry has assembled, and believe that this project, is really transformational, and we hope the USL can be part of it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Because I was sitting there and so many things were going through my mind, I had to take notes because otherwise I'd forget. Deborah and I.
I'm sorry.
Deborah and I.
Did somebody say something?
Everyone was introduced earlier.
Roxanne Johnson, Deborah Allen with Demery and Pettisclaw. The components that we were charged to address were the community engagements. So we only actually have 2 slides, but we did the work. Deborah and I we asked the question, I think in February or March, to Mr. English when we actually started seeing things on the news about this proposed $1.5 billion Cross Bayou project. And we realized after we heard him that I know that it's intergenerational, and I most certainly will not be here to see this completed. But it is personal to many of the individuals that we went out to the community and we met with. One thing that I think that stood in our minds a lot was the fact that, again, many years ago in 2010, I was a part of a group that did the Shreveport Cattle Master Plan. And I remember how after it was done, I think the city ended up spending $2 million on this particular project, researching it, that it sat on the shelf. So as I was looking through the presentation, in the early stages, I realized that they had incorporated so much of what was in the 2030 master plan. It was what the community had wanted to make sure that it was involved. We're looking at putting together a beautiful downtown. The one thing that Deborah and I heard often was that we are worthy. I happen to be blessed that I travel a lot. I also happen to be very sad often when I come back, and I realize that my downtown does not reflect in any way as the ones that I see across the country. I think we all believe and know that the heartbeat of the community is the downtown. We lack a heartbeat in our community. We went to, you can go to the next one. We went to so many different groups. We went to the Rotaries, the Optimists, all of the libraries. Some of them we went to more than once. We went to the neighborhood associations. And at first I thought after maybe the third or fourth conversation and sitting in the room, sometimes we had 2 individuals, sometimes we had 30 or 40 individuals. But I thought that for the most part why they came was that they didn't know enough. I do believe that we were on every, not necessarily me, every television station did a story on the Cross Bayou Point Initiative. Every radio station had someone come on and talk about it. It was in every print that was available. But yet the community, thinking about a $1.5 billion investment, needed to hear voices. So GDC presented a 15-minute PowerPoint presentation to us. We started going out and meeting in the community. We went to the north, the south, the east, and the west of our community. It was powerful, it was profound, but most importantly, it was welcomed. Because what they didn't read, what they didn't know, they were able to see it in this 15-minute PowerPoint presentation. So at the end of it, we received comments and wonderful questions that if we didn't have the answer that we could relay. But the community knows about this project. I think there's only one example I think that I could probably leave you with, because I think that Deborah had 2 comments, is that grandmother that I happen to be. I happen to be a grandmother with children that and friends that come into Shreveport, and they want to say, can we go to your downtown? Well, it doesn't reflect what a downtown, it's not viable. It's not exciting. It's not what we see when we go to other cities. But the grandmother who lived in Allendale said, all I want you to do is have something really nice downtown, that I can come down there, it doesn't cost me anything, but I can spend all day downtown with my grandchildren. I'll put them on a bus early in the day and come back in the evening, but I want them to see that kind of a life. The last thing I will say is that I'm a soccer mom. Child went to Byrd High School. And I was excited about the United Soccer League for more than one reasons, because that's money. That's children, that's involving in something that they can see at a national, international level, and it's right here in our community. This morning on the radio, I heard Marty or Justin talk about the United Soccer League, and it was interesting that Robert said on Keel, he said, so what are you trying to do? Let go of, get rid of CenturyTel? And wonderful Justin says, no, this is an outdoor soccer arena. We're talking 5,000 individuals that can come. We're talking high schools. We're talking, it would just be something that you build and they will come. These are our children. I won't be here to see it happen, but we have to start somewhere. And I hope that you decide to move forward in starting somewhere. Deborah has a comment.
As boots on the ground, the most profound thing to me and to Roxanne was the feedback, what they want this to look like. And without a doubt, the thing they wanted most was a place to take their grandchildren. We even had feedback of, well, where's the senior citizens in this? We brought that back. They said, we'll have housing for senior citizens. And what about the STEM school? Why can't it be STEAM as well? We took that back. They loved that idea as well. And I think you'll find in the letter of support, is across all demographics in this town, we have found support and got letters. That includes pastors, business owners, and the youth, especially the youth. We had one young man who owns one of the most popular restaurants say, I want to move my restaurant down there. So I think you'll be...
Orlando's.
So I think that you will be interested in to see what those letters are and the support that we'll have. Thank you.
We have letters of support to put in the record.
Okay, pass them to the clerk, please. And thank you, ladies, very kindly for your presentation. Very impressive.
Mr. Chairman, we made it clear, and committee members, we made it clear from the very beginning that this has to be a project that everybody involved is involved in. And, you know, I know a lot of people come up into this chamber and they tell you they're for minority business and they tell you that. But our partners, our local partners in this project, our fight and support for inclusion of minority businesses are in the record. We're committed to it. We don't need a program. We don't need goals. We don't need any of that. So Mr. Ricky Hall is going to address that for you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ricky Hall. Here to identify how important it is to include minorities in this project. I've been one of the ones that have been selected to really reach out to our local minorities and make sure that there's involvement. We've identified ways that it would help them in the future as well. We've looked at opportunities from partnering with the local AGC, providing some training for the building contractors as it relates to the vocational part of the project. And we also identified on utilizing Southern University and Bossier Community College because they have a vocational component there. So this will also help us as it relates to superintendents, project managers, inspectors of alike will all be involved in learning and growing in our community as it relates to a project of this magnitude. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the task force. Thank you for having us here this afternoon to talk with you a little bit about this very exciting project. My name is Keenan Rice. I'm the president and founder of MuniCap. MuniCap is a registered municipal advisor and a public finance consulting firm. That's all we do. It's an area we've specialized in for the last 30 years. Over those 30 years, we've worked on 300 projects, very much like the Cross Bayou project. All of these projects have been significant projects, projects that were important enough for local governments to team up with real estate developers to make these projects happen. In those 300 projects, we've helped fund almost $8 billion of public investment. That's just the public investment. Usually the private investment is anywhere from 7 to 10 times the public investment. So it's, you know, close to $100 billion that have been funded in real estate development on these projects we've worked on. One thing that's been very interesting to me, we have 5 offices throughout the country and we work in over 30 states. I've had the opportunity to see many projects around the country and to be involved in many great projects. And one of the things that we've seen as a trend with cities rediscovering their waterfront. And it's interesting, but many cities had actually lost touch with their waterfront. There's a lot of cities that were developed on rivers, and rivers were the key to transportation to those cities. But over time, as railroads developed and the trucking industry developed, cities lost touch with their waterfront. But today, cities are rediscovering the waterfront because the waterfront is a great amenity to bring people to the waterfront. And so in downtown areas where you have a waterfront, it's that opportunity to bring people back to the city, to the downtown. A waterfront is a great amenity. A developer cannot create a waterfront, but it can utilize the waterfront. And by creating places where people want to be on the waterfront, people love to come to the waterfront. And we've really seen some really amazing developments on the waterfront that are just very vibrant, and the public comes to that waterfront. And that is Larry's vision for this project, is to take advantage of the waterfront and create a public space where people want to come to the waterfront. And in coming to the waterfront, it brings them to downtown as well. Our role in this project is to, Larry earlier mentioned that he's going to be asking the city to use a TIF. Now what TIF stands for is tax increment financing. What that means is the increase in taxes. So developing this project will produce significant amount of additional taxes. And what Larry's asking you to do is to use some of those additional taxes to pay for public infrastructure and public facilities and amenities that are required to develop this property. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. But what I want to mention now is in developing that plan for the use of the TIF, there's two very important criteria that we start with. Number one, the goal is to make the project feasible. That's the reason why the developer asked for a TIF, because the project would not be feasible without it. So we want to be mindful of what is it going to take to make that project feasible. As a number of speakers have talked about, projects like this have to compete for capital, okay? And capital goes where it finds a good investment opportunity and provide a good return. If this project is not able to provide a good return for that capital, it'll go somewhere else. It'll go to another city where it can get a good return. So we want to make sure that we're providing an opportunity for a good return for investment, because that's how we attract investment for the project. So we want to be mindful, first of all, is how do we need to use a TIF to make this project feasible, because that's the reason we're all here, is to make this project a reality. But we also want to be mindful of what's important to the city in making that a good investment. In other words, what are the best practices for public policy when cities use a TIF? And that's an area in which we've done a great deal of work. We've done a great deal of research. We've worked with organizations such as the Government Finance Officers Association, the Urban Land Institute, the Council of Development Finance Agencies. We've worked with them, done research with them, spoken at many of their conferences, taught in courses and classes that they teach, and helped develop public policy best practices for public policy. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those best practices. But our goal is we develop a plan to propose the use of tax increment financing for this project. Is that number one, we're using that plan to help make this project a reality. And number two, we're using a TIF in a way that will make sense for you as well. And we'll talk about how we'll make that, how we make sure we make that make sense. So why is Larry asking for a TIF for this project? The reason is because developing this project in the manner that is envisioned to really create a vibrant place on the waterfront requires $132 million to be spent on public infrastructure and public amenities and public facilities. The TIF is not going to pay for private development. The private development will pay for itself. But the private development cannot pay for $132 million of public infrastructure and public facilities. I work on projects all over the country. I've worked on hundreds of projects. I don't think I've ever seen a project pay for $132 million of public infrastructure, public amenities. This public infrastructure and public amenities is very important. It's really critical to creating this project that is a vibrant place on the waterfront that brings people to the waterfront. Things such as the stadium that will be used not only for soccer, but all kinds of other sporting events, high school sporting events, and others. It's really important to creating a place that you bring people to the waterfront. That's the goal. That's the point. It's not just to go build some apartments or something like that. It's to create a vibrant place that brings people to the waterfront and brings them to downtown in the process. And to create that kind of a landmark project, you know, one thing we've learned about real estate development is when something gets developed, it's there for generations, you know, for 60, 80 years. And so whatever happens, that's what you're going to have for multiple generations. And Larry's vision is to create a place that all of those generations enjoy coming there. It serves them. You know, it's something that you'll want, you know, be happy to have there for the next 60, 80 years. But to create that kind of a project requires the appropriate infrastructure and the appropriate public facilities. And so that's what the TIF is for. Now, a couple of very important things for you to understand about the TIF is, number one, it's only using the increase in taxes. It doesn't use any of the taxes that you currently receive. And that's one of the things. TIF has been a very popular tool with local governments around the country. It's why we work in over 30 states around the country. There's a couple of reasons why TIFs have been so popular with local governments. Number one, in every city we go through around the country, we see cities that need to redevelop in their downtown areas. The problem is they don't have the money to invest in that. They have so many other needs that they need to spend money on, and they don't have the money to invest in redevelopment. Well, TIF creates the new taxes that you reinvest. So it doesn't require that you take any of the taxes that you're currently receiving. In fact, the second reason why tax increment financing is so popular is it's only useful to the developer if they perform on the promises. Okay, they have to go out there and develop property and produce new taxes. It's those new taxes the developer produces that gets invested to pay for the public infrastructure and the public facilities. If the developer doesn't perform, if it doesn't deliver on its promises, it doesn't get a TIF. Even if you approve it, it doesn't get a TIF because those incremental taxes aren't there. So that's another reason why TIFs have proven so popular around the country for redevelopment. And so on the TIF, principle number one is it's not going to take any of the taxes you currently receive. It's totally new taxes that the developer produces, and only to the extent it produces new taxes for you are those taxes available to pay for public infrastructure and public facilities. Second important point about the TIF is you will have no liability for those TIF bonds. Those bonds will be supported by the new taxes that are produced. And we've, as I mentioned, we've helped fund almost $8 billion of public investment in real estate development projects around the country. Almost every penny of that was done in the same way. There's many investors that are looking for these kind of investments because they provide a higher yield. As an example, we just recently went to the bond market to price some bonds. It was $35 million for a project located in the Charleston metro area. We were 10 times oversubscribed for those bonds. We had $35 million of bonds. We had over $300 million of orders from investors. Now, you have to structure the deal. One thing that investors to buy the bonds, they want to see the developments ready to go forward. But that's part of what makes a TIF valuable to you. For us to be able to go to the market and raise that money, Larry has to put all the pieces together so that that project's ready to go forward. And that's when the TIF becomes valuable. That's when the TIF attracts capital. But that's what you want to see. You want to see that the money you're providing is an incentive that makes that project real and makes it happen. If we go on to the next slide, we've done some preliminary estimates. Now, we're still doing some research on some of these, and I think these numbers are conservative, but we've done some preliminary estimates on the impact this project will have. According to the tax assessor, the fair market value of this property is currently $4 million. When this project is developed, again, we've had conversations and discussions with the tax assessor to see how they would value property and how they're valuing other properties in the city. Using the information we've obtained from the assessor, at completion, this project is estimated to have a value of over $700 million. So the property will grow in value from $4 million to over $700 million. The assessed value currently right now is right at $400,000. With the development of this property, that property that has a value of $4 million, assessed value of $400,000 will grow to assessed value of almost $80 million. As a result of that increase in value, the real property tax increment, the increase in real property taxes are estimated to be almost $120 million over 30 years. When you take the other tax revenues that will be produced as well, that's over $200 million in tax revenues that will be produced by this project over 30 years. And this is property that's producing almost no taxes right now. In addition to the very significant amount of tax revenues that will be produced by this project, it'll generate significant amount of new jobs. We've estimated that the permanent jobs will be approximately 1,500 at completion of the project. The money and the compensation for those 1,500 jobs is estimated at about $95 million a year, wages and benefits that those 1,500 employees will receive. Those employees will spend money in the community, and the money they spend will result in additional jobs. And we've estimated that the additional jobs created from those 1,500 jobs and the money they spend will be approximately another 1,000 jobs that will produce another $55 million in annual wages and compensation in your community. So the result of that together is $150 million of wages and compensation, new wages and compensation in this community from this project. In addition, the construction period is estimated to produce 8,600 jobs. Now, those are measured based on a one-year duration, just as a unit of measure. The project would be built over many years, so it won't be 8,600 jobs at any one point in time, but measured on a one-year duration. It's estimated to be 8,600 jobs during the construction period, which will pay wages and benefits of over $400 million. And those are construction workers in the community. And those people receive those wages, will spend money in the community, which is estimated to produce another 2,700 jobs with another $133 million. So that's over $250 million actually over $500 million of wages and compensation benefits during the construction period that people will receive as a result of the development of this project. Yeah, so on this slide, we've just gone over a summary of what will happen with the TIF versus without a TIF. First, the TIF provides self-funding, self-financing for the public infrastructure improvements. By self-funding, we mean this project produces the new taxes, they get invested to make the project possible. Without a TIF, there simply isn't financing available for $132 million of infrastructure. It's not going to happen. There's just no financing available for that. With the TIF, this development, vacant waterfront property gets developed that brings the public to the waterfront, enhances the downtown area. Without the TIF, that development's not going to happen. The waterfront's likely to remain vacant. With the TIF, it provides access to the waterfront, brings the public to the waterfront, brings the public to the downtown. Again, without the TIF, the project remains as it is, where the public has no access to that waterfront. With the TIF, you create new tax revenues and new jobs. Again, without the TIF, you don't have those new jobs and new tax revenues. In summary, with the TIF, you get a combination. You get a great new land use that brings the public to the waterfront and to the downtown. You get a significant amount of new tax revenues, and you get a great number of new jobs. All as the result of using the TIF. And remember, the fundamental principle of using the TIF is to make the project feasible and viable. And that's the only benefit to the TIF, is if the developer delivers on its promises to make the project real. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very, very kind.
Mr. Chairman, we've given you a whole lot. The final slides that we have is with our design team kind of talking about what the specifics of the project is and how it's laid out. And we'd be happy to give that with you, but we've given you a whole lot. We think it might be a good time right now to stop and pause and let you ask any questions with what we have given you. Then we can come back and kind of give you a little final there. It was up to you, whichever you want.
We're within the time frame that we had estimated. How long is the?
It's not that, we're not that long.
This
You want to complete, you want to go through it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, then we'll complete
Okay.
at the end.
You up, right?
Good afternoon again. My name is Dominic Ozan, President and CEO of Ozan Construction Company. And I'm glad to be with you here this afternoon. With me is Desi Sprouls. He is the Chief Engineer for Fort and Tabitha. Ricky, on our team includes, as we said, Grayson Abear, and as well as Ricky Hall. So we're the design build team, as it were. Next slide. So this is basically an overview, as Marty indicated. You know, what you've seen are concepts, but they're well-developed concepts based on sizes and square footages that have been generated with Larry's direction and by Grayson Abear. So in general, you see the public component of the project's $132 million. The private component that Larry and Marty will generate is $864 million, and that's how you get to the magic number of $1 billion, and then that $1 billion would be augmented by additional private development, and that's why you hear that higher figure of as much as $1.5 million. Desi?
Let's go to the next slide, if you would. Again, this is kind of an overview. We've kind of separated the tract into just a couple of different areas just to kind of give you an idea of what we envision would be in particular areas of the Crossbow. The first area there is where the existing Jody Wagoner building is. That'll be the site where the new state office building is proposed. Across the street there is where we would propose to have the new Justice Center. And then we have some housing units as you start actually going towards Crossbow. And then you've got, that's, you know, basically the first area. Go to the next slide. You know, the second area, you know, you start picking up the multi-sports complex, additional housing units, the little water pavilion, the marina. If you go to the next one. As you go over, start approaching Red River, this is where we envisioned some of the elderly housing occurring. And the thought is that we're able to put a walk underneath the bridge so that if you have elderly housing, they can safely access down to all of the major area where you have the multi-sports facility and other things. So then a little possible amphitheater and some additional high-rise housing. Then This is where they would envision the luxury condos. These are the ones that would have direct access to Red River. So these are the housing units that would create the greatest revenue demand. And then, of course, the very last slide is ultimately we would look at putting a hard edge on the north side in addition to the hard edge that would be proposed on the south side. And that's kind of an overview of kind of in general where different particular items would go on the site.
Finally, what's the next step? City and Gateway would execute a cooperative endeavor agreement. That is a binding MOU. Louisiana law will not allow you to enter into a relationship with us unless there is an agreement and documentation that show that whatever public dollars or land that is put into this project, the city would receive back equal or greater value for that. Marty has said to you that the images that were in front of you, they were there. We needed something to lay out what the frame of it would be, and they would almost certainly change, because the next step was that City and Gateway Sabre would then execute a master development agreement, and that is a more detailed agreement. The city gets we all have to sit together as a developer and the community and the city and execute a master development agreement that will go into the minutia of what everybody's responsibility is, how the project will be built, who does what, where, who does that when. Next of it is the city would have to execute cooperative endeavor agreements with the Red River Waterway Commission for hard banking. As you know, the Red River Waterway Commission has dollars to do that. They hard bank the Louisiana Boardwalk. I took my first ride down Cross Bayou this morning, and Commissioner Roy Burrell, who is also on the Red River Waterway Commission, he accompanied us. We have given a presentation to the Red River Waterway Commission. Once we execute our relationships with the city, we will go back to them. So a part of that $132 million, while it will also be paid for by the TIF, a part of that infrastructure money would also come from the Red River Waterway Commission. We would then begin negotiations with the parish and state to develop a criminal justice and state office complex. The land and the TIF is the root to the gumbo. But there is no project without the Criminal Justice Center and the state office building also being part, because we need something to anchor this project with. The TIF will sell municipal bonds to begin the public infrastructure improvements, and Gateway and Sabre would then secure the private financing. That is the completion of our presentation. We're available to you to answer any questions that you may have.
Ms. English, and to those who came forward, this is my third time hearing a proposal for this property development. And I can say without the fear of being contradicted, that this is the most impressive, detailed, enlightening, purpose-driven presentation that I've heard. Now, and all I can say is thank you. I want to thank you first for taking the time to hear the vision, hear the idea, and then feel compelled to investigate it and then offer yourselves for partnerships and participation. I mean, you didn't have to do it. You could have chose any other area, any other state, any other city. But you saw something in this proposal, and you came together and you shared your resources and your expertise. Very, very reputable group of individuals and companies, and you have put your reputations and your experience in this equation. I want to thank you again, but there's going to be some questions. But I just want to say that the resources that you put in already is beyond my words to express. I'm going to yield to any council, any committee members who wants to ask some questions, and then I'll come back with some questions. But I want to be clear, Mr. English. You said as a prerequisite, if the state and the parish structures cannot be forthcoming, then that will halt the whole construction out here. Is that my understanding?
Mr. Chairman, all of these pieces have to be put together. They have to be put together. But the first part of this project is that we have to have the land and the TIF. That is the first part. Nothing moves.
Okay.
Yes.
That and then comes all the.
Yes, it's the trigger to everything.
Okay. All right. Any council members? Any members have any questions at this time?
I do.
Yes, please.
Okay. First, I want to add my thanks and to echo Councilman Bradford's thanks to you, Mr. English, and to this entire team. This is a very impressive team. We appreciate all the work that has been gone into this. And I will say, on behalf of the city, I appreciate the interest in a project that could bring so much capital and so much talent to this place. And furthermore, I will add a couple more compliments. I think that when you look at cities across the country and around the world, virtually, almost every city is on a waterfront of some kind, and the vast majority have rediscovered their waterfronts and found ways to take what was once an industrial wasteland and turn it into something positive and useful. And so I think this is on trend and positive in a lot of ways. So again, I share in Councilman Bradford's words of thanks and compliments on a lot of what we heard. I have a handful of questions. I'm not quite sure to whom to direct them. So maybe, Mr. English, I'll direct them at you, and you can allocate them as appropriate.
I'm the least smart person on this team, so you allocate them.
The humility is welcome, but let us see. So. The first question is about the initial costs, and I appreciate the detailed presentation on the TIF, which was informative, and I think conveys the impression that actually there is essentially virtually no cost to the city of a lot of this, which I think is also an admirable part of the plan and deserves a lot of positive praise too. But I saw in your slide just now that what you're asking is for. If I could, was for the city to assemble and remediate the land. So could you share what you mean by remediate and what the likely cost of that will be and who's on the hook to pay for that?
I'm Marty Berger with Sabre Real Estate Advisors. I think the question is what's involved with this remediation of the site? A good amount of the 88 acres is clean, or relatively clean relative to what you consider to be contaminated sites. A portion of the property contains a scrap yard, and a portion of the property, from what I understand, contained a former boat yard. I'm not sure exactly how many acres, maybe 15, 20 acres, but a portion of it. So those areas have to be remediated. We've done this many times on our sites with Hess. We did it in the Oasis, where the Oasis was on 32 acres of a former boat marina, very similar to this, where paint and lead contaminated the soil. You have to take it out, clean it, so on and so forth. So our company is capable of taking charge and leading the remediation and doing the work with the remediation. We're not asking the city to come out of pocket, but the city has access to grants and other vehicles to bring in funds that we can't. So we're looking to partner with the city and let the city do what they can to maximize the amount of state and federal funds that can come in to assist us in cleaning up the site.
And so just if I read the slide correctly, and if I read what Mr. English just said correctly, like part of what is required to move forward is that the city not just assemble, but with you get the remediation done. And what I hear you saying is the city could be responsible for corralling funds, but what do you think is the total cost to do that remediation?
Do we have a number on remediation? Wait, tell me.
Yes, we do. So we have our detailed budgets. Environmental remediation for the project, we have been carrying at $14,525,000.
Cool. So 14 or so million.
Yes. And that's prior to so we have not done geotech. So that's just a number that we've been carrying from our preliminary evaluations of the master plan and some prior studies that have been done.
How many acres that is?
I believe that is about 20 acres of the 66-acre site.
Larry, let me pick it up.
We'll take just one down, step back down. Just a technical, from a legal standpoint, there are private property owners, as you know. Liability does not leave that private property owner. So the state of Louisiana right now is working with General Scrap in order to clean up their property. Even if the city bought the property from General Scrap and began to remediate the property, the federal and the state government will not allow General Scrap to walk away. You can't indemnify them. They will not allow the private property owners to walk away from the site. The state and the federal government will not come in. They will not clean up the property, put any money toward the property unless the private property owners carry a part of that cost. Liability stays with the original property owners. One of the issues that in my conversations with General Scrap, in which what they're concerned about, and so what we have to do is bring everybody to the table, because we can buy the city can acquire the property from General Scrap, it can be cleaned up, but General Scrap is concerned that 20 years from now somebody may knock on their door and say it didn't get cleaned up right, and you're on the line for it. So in order to clean this site of there is not just the city involved, it's not just us involved. The existing property owners that may have brownfield issues, they're going to have to be at the table, and it has to be negotiated out who pays what for the work.
Sure, but in the current proposal, if I may, just to clarify the question, there was something like many hundreds of millions of dollars of private dollars coming in to fund stuff, and there was TIF funding to fund public improvements, but neither of those pools of money contains an allocation for this remediation, right? There's an extra amount the city needs to come up with soon.
No, that's incorrect.
Thank you.
The budget of the private development includes the remediation dollars. We're ultimately responsible for getting the project done. At the end of the day, not at the end of the day, but the entire process, we're going to look for as many outside sources of funding as possible, because that's what smart developers do, and that's what you would do if it was your development. If you had to remediate the site, you would look to the state or the federal government. We're no different. We're looking to bring in whatever dollars we can. Two other points on this. The first is order of magnitude, $14 million is right in the ballpark of most of our other developments. The Oasis, 32 acres, as I remember, and this goes back 10 years plus, was 10, 12, $14 million. The Hess terminals are anywhere between $10 and $20 million. The project we're doing now at Hudson Heritage, the asbestos, lead, and soil is $16,288,000. So order of magnitude, it's the same. Secondly, we've designed the projects in areas, and the first area specifically doesn't touch the site that needs to be remediated. So you asked if it's important to have the two office buildings as being the first component, and in our game, in our business, the first thing you want to do is get on first base. Once you get on first base, you can then talk about rounding the bases. So our first base here is to get the first chunk, first area done. It doesn't require remediation, and it has, quote, the anchor tenant, which will allow us to get a footing, allow us to put money out, allow us to get working going, and allow us to get revenue from that, refinancing, et cetera, to build a multifamily and retail, et cetera. During that duration, we have time then to further engineer the site, to go through a remediation process on the area that needs to be remediated.
I have a question.
Sure.
What has been the feedback from the local legislative delegation, our state delegation? Have we spoken with all of them to get their feedback and their support?
We have letters of support in the record from local delegations. I think about maybe 8 months ago, we met in Baton Rouge with the entire delegation, and we gave them a presentation.
And 100% of them were in agreement and supportive?
The answer to that question is we really don't know. I can't answer that question.
Yeah, because a few of them have changed since the last 8 months too.
If I could just finish. We gave the delegation we gave them a full presentation. When we spoke to the governor indicated to us that he would need support from the state delegation, but he specifically said to us, I understand I will not have the support of every member of the delegation. I do not need the support of every member of the delegation, but I will listen to the members of the delegation involved in this project. State Representative Sam Jenkins, who I think is the best person to talk to on this project, because he has been working with the governor and he's been working with the state delegation, and he can more inform you as to where that delegation may be.
Right, because it's the district that we both share.
Yeah, exactly, he represents the district.
As do I.
Exactly.
And let me just say that since you met with the governor and that delegation, some of the North Louisiana delegation have changed. So, but we will have an opportunity to revisit this with our state officials.
We have not met with the delegation when we had the project together in terms of fully finalized where it is now, okay?
Sure.
They did not see this presentation. When we met with the delegation, we had very much an outline of the project. We did not have the United Soccer League with us. Marty was not a partner with us. We are confident that when we go back to the state delegation and we present this to them, certainly those individuals who are of a reasonable mind will support the project.
Yes, sir.
I think Larry took the words out of my mouth. I can't see why a delegation or a public official, frankly, wouldn't support the project. What I mean by that is, you have land that's not been used for 100 years that's going to be used. You have a waterfront that's not accessible that's going to be accessible. You have a riverbank that is deteriorating that's going to be protected. We're not asking you for money. We're not asking you for a handout. We're not asking you to write a check for $1 before we put our money in. We're creating jobs. We're not taking away from jobs. Somebody mentioned, well, what about the courthouse on Texas? I'll be the first one to refurbish it. I'll be the first one to buy it. It's a beautiful building. I guarantee you that I can revitalize that and reoccupy it in a heartbeat. So I really can't see why somebody would come out against this project. Most towns that we are in, frankly, we're asking for significant dollars, and this is a rarity.
What you're asking for now is for us to take some low-value property, and rather than us actually increase the value ourselves so that we can recover more of the funding for it ourselves, that we hand it to you and then lease it back from you.
Well, I would look at it this way, to be candid. I kind of disagree with Larry in terms of, or somebody would say whether it's valuable. I don't think it's valuable at all. I think any property that sits and doesn't pay taxes, that has environmental contamination, that doesn't do anything, is nothing other than a liability.
Right.
I don't know how much money you spend in police resources, et cetera.
Sure.
So to me, it's valueless. If you would like to get an appraisal on a property,
My counter to you is that
excuse me.
My counter to you is that we can actually increase that value ourselves as a city, and then actually make some money off of it instead of just handing it over to you.
You're right.
So put 3 government buildings on it, which will not actually be
Sure.
putting any revenue back into our tax coffers, because they'll all be government buildings.
Let me respond to you, because you said a lot there. So if you look at an appraisal of the project and you take into consideration the liabilities, I think that you can find that the property is upside down. That's firstly. Second of all, the city is getting revenue from it, because the city is getting the taxes in the future. We're not using all of the taxes to retire the improvement money, the improvement bonds. We're using a portion of it. The net windfall is huge, gigantic, and Keenan can go into the details of that the city is getting. And you're right, you can do it. And if you'd like to do it, that's fine. Say the word and we'll go on to another town. If you have the money, the resources, the time, the dedication, the $5, $10, $15 million of pre-development money to pay these 24 firms between now and the date you put a shovel in the ground, then certainly that might be something you would like to do. But if not, we're an option. Go ahead, Keenan.
Thank you. Your question is a logical question, and I'd like to try to help answer it. Our business is basically public-private partnerships, local governments working with developers, and we've worked on hundreds of projects around the country. There are 2 primary reasons why local governments bring in developers to help them redevelop properties like this. Number one is local governments really don't have that expertise. You can see the development team that's brought here. There's an incredible amount of expertise that's coming in, and it takes that kind of expertise to develop a visionary project like this. And local governments don't have that expertise, so they look to bring development teams in that have that expertise and the vision and the ability to make something like this a reality. The second reason why local governments bring developers in is it's normally a very bad idea for local governments to take development risk, because you have to pay for public services, and you can't put the money at risk for those public services. So while you want to see property like this get redeveloped, you don't want to be at risk for development like this. It's a very high-risk venture is the reality, and you need to preserve your tax dollars to pay for public services, so you bring in the private sector to come in and take that risk and develop the property and make it a reality. They're willing to take that risk because it's their business. They know what they're doing, and they can evaluate the risk and handle and manage those risks. So those are the two reasons. I understand your idea, but the reality is you need the expertise that a development team like this has, and you don't really want to take the risk that's involved in investing money in real estate development. So I just suggest those are a couple of things to think about.
So what's the advantage of us working directly with this group as the primary developer instead of going out for RFP for the entire bundle once we did put it together and then do the remediation? Why would we do this instead of that?
I'm sorry, can you ask that question one more time? You threw up, there was a lot in that question. Can you ask that again?
Why would we partner with you all instead of going out for RFP if we're going to do the work of assembling all of that property?
Councilwoman, that's a great question. And let me answer that question. I'm going to try to be as factual as with you as we can. When I was 30 years old, John Hussey put me on a committee for Cross Bayou. I worked there with some of the brightest minds in the city, and they came up with a plan to do Cross Bayou. That was over 30 years ago. In 1996, the citizens passed a bond issue for $5 million directing the city to buy land and to develop Cross Bayou. I can't count, 96, 86, 2006, 2016. That was 40, am I 30 years ago? 40 years ago. That was 40 years ago. The city has not redeveloped Cross Bayou. We came to the city 18 months ago, and we said to the city, we would like to do this plan. That gave the city, that gave any other private developer in Shreveport, any other private developer outside of Shreveport, to put a plan together and come to the table. Talk is cheap. What you see up on that screen, that is $5 million that we have already spent on this project. How much more money, Marty, we will have to spend just to get a shovel in the ground? It's going to come out of our pocket. We've got to spend another $10 million of money out of our pocket in order to spend it. We have assembled a world-class team. You see it. We have been transparent from the very beginning. If anyone or any local developer or any outside developer thought that they could do this better than us, I think they would have rushed down in here and they would have done it. They have not done it. There comes a time when you have to do a deal. We're here to do a deal. Now, if you don't think that the world-class team and work and study that we have put into this project, we're asking for a vote on January the 12th, and if the council don't want to do the deal with us, you can vote us down, and you can say, well, we'll go try to find somebody else to do it. But as I looked out the door when I was walking in this room, there was nobody chickens in this room but us. And in the 30 years when John Hussey asked me to serve on a committee for Cross Bayou, not one local development has stepped up to put a proposal together. Not one local developer has stepped up. When the last developer that came in front of this council in order to ask you to do Cross Bayou, I was in the meeting with them. I said in the meeting, you do not have in the public record a detailed development plan of this detail in statute to tell you what this is. This is a business deal. We're looking for a return on our investment. We're offering you a return on our investment, and we're hoping that you would take this opportunity for us to move forward. We have done what we told you to do. We hope that you would do a deal with us, but if not, we understand that also.
Tell me more about the STEM charter school. Do you have any agreements with the school board or the superintendent on that?
The answer to that question is no. What we have done is propose a vision for this project. What we haven't done is engaged in conversations with every stakeholder in this city. There is not one group that we have talked to that told us that they would not be willing to work with us. We had a team dinner last night. I think we invited you to the team dinner. Lloyd Thompson, who was a member of the school board, was in that meeting. He was with us. What we will do of it is that what we have to do is the confidence. Because see, when I tell you talk is cheap and we put our money to the table on this project, what we're doing of it is we're taking the risk that we can convince the state to do what they said they would do, the parish would do, and those other groups. What we have is, Councilwoman, is hope. We have the hope that if we come back to the citizens with a detailed deal, if we come back to the citizens with a world-class deal, the citizens will do the deal. Roxanne and Deborah have spent over 100 meetings. When we first came to you 18 months ago, we didn't come back 3 months later. We went out for the last 18 months we've worked. We have went into every neighborhood in this city. We're like Jesus Christ. We met with 2 people. We met with 10 people. We met with 30 people. We have talked to them. Sure, does everybody approve of this project? Absolutely not. And I would not tell you if it is. But the overwhelming people that we have talked to, they have urged us to do something, and we're doing it.
Councilor, I'm sorry. Brown, did you finish your question, Harris?
I do have 1 or 2 more if I may, but
Okay.
if you are
I'm excused.
short for time, I'd be pleased to yield.
No, we're 10 minutes out. Councilman, we'll see you. Happy holidays.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay. Okay, complete your questions, please.
Thank you. And Mr. English, I want to say out loud that I will be the maybe second to say that I do appreciate the amount of work that has gone into this, and furthermore the amount of money and time that has been spent on this very detailed plan. And I take it this is more in the spirit of a working together question. I take it that a lot of elements of this are open to further work, right? Such as if folks around the city were to feel that the physical plan offered could use some improvement to further open up the downtown to the water, or to make the project more consistent with the nature of our downtown rather than disruptive, that we would be amenable to changes such as that.
Yeah, sure. There's all that money that was spent to get to this 2-dimensional drawing.
Yeah.
But the 2-dimensional drawing, as I said, is going to change 100 times between now and the day we put a shovel in the ground. It's going to reflect a lot of input, a lot more design thought and comment. And frankly, I threw a number of $10 million out, but that's probably a correct number. I mean, between the survey work, the as-built work, the geotechnical, the environmental, the engineering, the off-site, on-site, the architectural, it's millions and millions of hours and dollars. So, yeah, the plan is not perfect today. It needs to better fit into downtown. It needs to be a connection. The idea of having an arena downtown, as I said to somebody earlier, is like the in Tampa. And I've said this. I'm sorry if you've heard it again, but it's like where the Yankees practice in Tampa. Yankees have a practice stadium right in a hard corner of Dale, Mayberry, and West Shore. And it deliberately has no parking. It's not like Independence Stadium. You have to park away. You have to walk to it. You have to enjoy it, and deliberately to come out and go to the restaurants and go to the shops. So the vision and the way that this has to work is similar interconnection with downtown. Second of all, the uses will change. The sizes, the order of magnitude, the priority. So all of that will change this over and over again. Cool. Just lastly, as to the question of the STEM school, in all of our projects we start with a certain occupancy or percentage, and in this case hopefully it's the 2 school buildings. But we're used to going out and finding our users and tenants, and whether it's a STEM school, a charter school, a nursery school, a college, we have no idea exactly what it's going to be. But it's going to be something, because that's what we do for the last 30 years. For the last 30 years, we bring tenants and users to the table.
I do have one more question, if you don't mind.
Can Brandon finish his question?
Were you done?
If I may,
Go ahead.
I wanted to follow up because we talked a little bit about the state and city office buildings, and there is, as you can imagine, some controversy about leaving an empty building in Highland where we have the state building and leaving an empty building in the middle of our downtown where we currently have the courthouse. And so you have already covered this, so I won't rehash it, but there is a sense in which the government buildings don't really count as economic development or as new jobs. And so the big element that's new is the soccer field, which is a cool thing. And so I wonder if you could comment on this is a genuine question from ignorance, as I have not studied this matter, but on the success record of large stadiums in cities like ours. Do they tend to succeed over time? Do they tend to really bring people downtown? And how many of them are still in business a decade or so later? Do they provide the revenue? What is the success record of large sports institutions?
Justin can answer that, but in terms of the first, both the courthouse and the state building will be significantly larger than what they are now, so therefore there'll be a significant increase in jobs. We will make a commitment to purchase and reutilize the court on Texas. I think that's one of the gems in the pool. So I don't think it's a court building today. I mean, I think that given the change of security, the change of infrastructure, the change of the way people work, the way you need to store records, protect records, and so on and so forth, you probably need a better facility. Rather than change the windows and the lintels every 5 years for $800,000, you're better off having a brand new building that works and is very efficient. Justin can talk to you about arenas, but I will tell you, as in the case of Tampa, where there's a arena right downtown, it is the impetus of the economic environment. We were speaking earlier today about the M&T Stadium in Baltimore, where you can go on Google and you can see where it is. It's literally right in Baltimore. I mean, and there's very little parking, and it's intentional. When there's a game, people park on the other side of the city. They walk through the waterfront. They walk over through retail, through restaurants, and they get to the stadium. And that's when they return. They do it the same way. So there are many examples that I've seen in my travels. But perhaps, Justin, would you like to pick up?
So thank you for the question, and I'll just preface it by saying I have a flight that leaves in 45 minutes, so I'm going to try to be brief now, and then I'd like to follow up with with some documentation so you can better see what we're doing. I think across the country we have over a dozen stadiums under development, and so what I'd like to do is provide some information on some USL specific stadiums that have been built, some ones that are being built, and some of the economic development figures that preceded those developments, and then some ones that I think are going to be built. So I'd like to provide you information, and then happy to answer any information after you've seen those economic development.
And if I could just add in quickly, Tim Magner and I believe something. Tim Magner believed that I believe that if we start this project, and we believe that if we get on a plane with this bright, young, Harvard-educated economic development lawyer, a bright, young Harvard lawyer, a bright, young city councilwoman, and we fly out to Silicon Valley and other places in the country, we can begin to entice other companies into this project, into downtown. This is not a finished project. This is a beginning of a project, and it is a spark to get something done. So this is a public-private partnership. We are not, and that's exactly what it is. If this project is going to be successful, if we're going to revitalize the central business district, I cannot stress to you that we have to work together moving forward. We started out with those two buildings because we don't think we could attract Amazon or Google right now, but we believe that once we get this project moving, given the collective talent in this city, we can then go across the country and try to attract new industry, new clean, green, high-tech industry that you know so well about into the city.
Let me do this. That's your last question.
I have one more that I think is a quick and easy one, if I may.
Yeah, I want you to finish.
Sure. Pardon me, Mr. English. One thing I also noticed, and I think this is an incredibly high-quality team, and I want to be sincere in saying how much we appreciate everyone who is here and the work that they have put into trying to make our city better. But one thing that I do notice about the team you have assembled is that 100% of the people who have come, save for the two ladies who have spoken about community engagement, are from outside the city. And so we have very high-quality architects, planners, engineers, and construction companies. And one of the reasons that we are interested in minority participation in all of those fields is that we want to create jobs and wealth for local people here in Shreveport. And I think this will be an easy question, but I hope and think that if the project goes through, we could look forward to seeing some of those local faces at the helm of each of these fields in the future.
Brandon, we reached out to every local contractor, every local engineering firm. We reached out to the top firms in this city when we first started this project, and we said, listen, we're trying to do this. Come be a part of this. Unfortunately, up until this point, they declined. We believe that once we get the project moving, that there is not a door closed on this project. We believe that once we get the project moving, that other individuals, local companies will come in. The reality of it is that you cannot build a project, and Dominique them and Desi them. I think we reached out to the AGC as recently in the last week, and I think we have a meeting with the AGC coming up soon. Okay. From the very beginning, we've reached out to this project. We have reached out to local people, but you know, there's some cynicism about whether or not you could do a project like this size and scope. But I assure you, we're gonna go back to them again once we have this, at least the first piece of this saying, come on board and please help us build this project.
Thank you. I know there are a lot of other questions. Pardon me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Moore.
Thank you so much. I, too, want to thank you for coming today and such an impressive presentation as well. We in the city of Shreveport have suffered from population lag. For the last 30 years, we've had little or no growth. We have a poverty rate of about 25% according to the ACS. And according to the Alice report, we're at poverty and a little above poverty at about 56%. The unemployment rate doubles and triples in low-income neighborhoods. And we're suffering from low educational attainment and economic disparity. I said that to say that if we don't strategically and legally invest in our community and in development like yours, then we're going to die on the vine as a city. I do want to say this, though, because this is close to my heart. When a development of this scale is done, I believe that the benefits of others should accrue to those of lesser means. So I heard you say that you didn't have a goal for minority and women-owned participation and job creation and training. I'd like to know how would you ensure that we have this done. And then I have one other question. You can answer both of them. And then I'm meeting with you all tomorrow, so my other questions I'll entertain then.
You want to say something? So when we tell you we don't have a goal for the project of it is not that we will not set goals. One of the things I actually set a goal, and Dominique Ozan said to me, what we don't want to do is have a ceiling. We don't want to have a ceiling on this project. My personal goal and what I believe of it is that we can reach a 50% minority business development goal on this project. One of the things of it is, again, because this is a project and you have to trust, we're asking you to trust, but listen, let me tell you, Councilman, let me give you a private conversation. This is one of my oldest and dearest friends, and everybody knows this. He said to me, you know I'll do anything for you. But if you can't demonstrate to me and commit to me that black firms in this city will get a significant piece of this project, way above way above the 25% number at the city, I will kill it. That's what Councilman Bradford said to me, and he's never lied to me. Councilman Bradford and myself, Ricky Hall, we pushed through Darren West. We pushed through the first Fair Share program, as you can recall, in this city. We are committed to this project. This is a business project. We're here to make money, And certainly we have to make money for our investors, but we have a tremendous civic pride about ensuring that the people in this project will move forward. And one of the things Marty said to me, who this is his first time in Shreveport, is the city is 60% of color. So the reality of it is the people who are going to build this project, we can't bring in, while we may bring in some contractors, we can't bring in workforce and bring them in. You have my commitment. And all we can give you, Bonnie, is our commitment, and we hope that we've earned that of it is that minority and women firms will build a significant portion of this project way above what the city's goal is.
If I could just add to that, it's in many of our other developments, we've instituted programs where the by agreement, as the attorney says, where the subcontractors, where we committed to the cities that the contractor and the subcontractors were required to initiate a local support outreach program, where we enter into a document, it gets attached to the subcontract, the GC contract, that requires them to have job fairs and the opportunity to train and empower young people into the fields. Mixed results. We met with cities, we met with local community groups, colleges, high schools, etc. In some areas it works, and some areas it doesn't. So it's easy for us to commit to say that we'll do this. It's worked in the past. It's really a question of collectively whether or not we can make it happen. And in regard to one of the comments you said about the situation that you have here, in my short amount of time here, I've met a lot of people that are dedicated to the rebirth of the city. Sometimes the good news is here you have 24 professionals that have experiences in 24, 30, 40, 50 other cities. We've seen what works in 50 other cities. Maybe perhaps we have some fresh ideas that we can bring to the table and help.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Real quick.
Oh, is that related?
It's related. It's related. It's a related response. I'm a former chairman, president of the National Association of Minority Contractors, so we've built, we're a 62-year-old firm. I'm generation 2. My son Dominic's generation 3. So to your point about can you issue an RFP and do it yourself, we can do far more in the private sector. Speed. The private sector, which you have in front of you, can operate at 10 times the speed of the public sector. We can move faster, more quickly, more aggressively, and we can do far more for minority contractors through construction management at risk than the public sector ever could. So I think speed, no doubt the private sector moves faster. We're here. I mean, the whole team's here. We talk every Friday by phone, the construction team does. And so speed and then flexibility with moral, ethical, legal principles and the right people. We're AGC members in Ohio. We can bring the resources together to do workforce, do contracting, do task orders, payroll, whatever levels of flexibility that you provide in this community. With Ricky Hall, I'm in Ricky's house, so Ricky is guiding me in terms of the local contracting. Desi's also assisting, and so Jerry is as well. We can do far more privately with Marty, with Larry's commitment, than the public sector ever possibly could. That's why you want to hire a developer.
And this is the most diverse team in the country working on a project of this size and scale. So if you want to know whether or not we're committed, look across this table right here. Men, women, black, white. This is the most diverse team working on a project of this size and scale in the country.
We're gonna have one more question, and the council lady, and then we'll have comments from the public. But we need to move forward. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, my last question, and I'll ask the others on tomorrow. I didn't see anything about a market assessment. Was a market assessment done?
That was my question, specifically as it pertains to residential. Yeah. Thank you.
We have spent a lot of money on this project this far, and at each step of the way, we've asked you for commitments. We've asked you for the commitment of to get us the non-binding image so we could get this far. We're now to the point of it is where we will now start to put substantial amount of dollars into this project to answer those questions. As far as a marketing study for residents, I think the city and the Association of Planners did a marketing study about a couple of years ago, and that marketing study came back and said that there's no market for residences in this city. We're in the business of building markets. That's what this project is about. And what I can 100% guarantee you is, in a socio-economic market of 1 million people, that's what the Architects is, there's more than enough people who are going to want to live downtown in a waterfront neighborhood in one of the most vibrant and exciting downtowns that would be in this region and in the country. We make our markets, and that's what we intend to do, is to create a new market for this project.
Okay. Council Lady?
That was the same question.
Just along that line, it doesn't matter whether, frankly, the product is 30% affordable, 20%, 10%. Doesn't matter if it's 3-story, 5-story, 20-story. We'll build whatever the market actually dictates and tells us when we get into the details. The important thing is that it'll have housing, because the housing supports the restaurants and the retail in the downtown. So we'll figure out exactly what the proper units are, how big they have to be, what the components and what the rents have to be.
That was my question for tomorrow.
Okay, all right, listen, great conversation. At this time, members of the public who wants to make comments, come forward. Your name, address for the record.
My name is Marcel Miner, 1301 Coates Bluff Drive. I believe I'm in your district, Ms. Fuller.
Yes,
City Council, esteemed members, thank you so much for the time. I think that this project is a project that the city definitely needs to do. I've been a businessman for 13 years. Since 21 years old, I've been making my own way. I've been pretty successful on AT&T authorized retail store on Line Avenue. And I think a project like this city needs. I provide jobs for the city. Mr. Bradford, me and you just talked, the other day that we're going to get together to talk about how I have a plan to add 150 new jobs to my business. I have a few different endeavors that we're getting into. I think that this project is paramount. I was listening to what some of your esteemed members have been saying, and I've been in this city for 6 years, and a lot of people may say, well, Marcel, you're not from here. But I raised my kids here, and I have a family here, and I want a future. Just from being a business owner myself, I've seen I've seen a rotating door, so to speak, when I hire young people, train them, offer them to go to Dallas or Houston or even Jackson, Mississippi, and take the skills and the trade that my company has taught them elsewhere.
Yes, sir.
And it needs to stay here. It needs to stay in this city.
I agree.
So I just wanted to come up here and say that I'm definitely a citizen, and I'm in support of the Cross Bayou Project.
Mr. Mount, thank you for not only making those remarks, but for your interest in generating opportunities for those that are liking those opportunities. And we will be meeting right after the holiday, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Anybody else?
I am Bill Weiner. I live in Shreveport. I'm also a retired architect, planner for over 50 years. I graduated from Cornell School of Architecture and Planning. The last term I was first in my class. I made a lot of little notes, so I'm just going to jump around because I made notes.
You got 3 minutes, Mr. Weiner, okay?
No, forget it. They had more than 3 minutes.
They hold a meeting where the people can speak at a time that we can all show up from work to speak and let them listen to us for 2 hours.
I'm trying to give you information so that you can make a better informed decision.
Mr. Weiner.
You guys are the board of directors.
Wait a minute.
We are
Wait a minute,
the
hold on a
shareholders
second.
of the corporation.
This committee, he got allowed to speak. Mr. Perkins, but I'm saying that this committee will ascertain all the information that was presented, and we will present it to the full council. This is not a council meeting. This is a committee
It's not a
meeting.
council meeting.
But
That's why you don't
Let me
limit it
take
to
my 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Okay.
I'll take my 3 minutes. We've talked about this before. We're broke in Shreveport.
Address.
Perk. I live at 310 Gentilly Circle. I have 4 homes in Shreveport that my family would like to sell, but we can't because the study is right. We're broke, and people want to leave Shreveport, but they're stuck here. We, as a city, we're the shareholders. You guys are the board of directors, employees, some, but we're in a period that's very dark here. It's dire, and a lot of people want to leave. They want to leave, but they can't. If you dump more housing onto the market, what happens to my dad's home out in Southern Trace? He's 90 years old. How does the family dispose of that if there's luxury housing glut right now? Would these guys put their retirements, these 100 millionaires in the room, would they put their retirements on this? How does the TIF get paid off? If it makes money, then it comes out of our tax revenue. That's the only product we have is property to sell to people, and that's how they pay for it, is by paying taxes, and then that does delivery of basic services. Every time we had a pipe burst, infrastructure, 100 and some million, every time we had a pipe burst, we had 3 crews out fixing them all day long because it was $100,000 a time that they burst, according to your reports. Right now, we're looking at $2 billion. I know you haven't announced that yet, but it'll be $2 billion to fix the existing water and sewer infrastructure. We haven't borrowed that much money. These guys haven't presented a plan for how we pay for the free infrastructure that they're going to give us. That's the big developer deal. We'll build it, it's yours. 30 years from now, we'll have to pay to fix whatever they build. They'll be gone. And if you've lived here long enough, I've seen every one of these development projects come in, build something beautiful, and then go bankrupt. They take the money and leave us with the problems. So please stop. Give us a chance to put together a consortium, and we'll put together a Shreveport consortium and beat it. We'll beat their offer. Thank you.
Mr. Winter, please come back up. Come back up.
You want to speak this week? Come on, man, get back up.
Thank you. I'll be as brief as I can. In the deliberation of this project, have they considered what's going to happen when one or both of the gambling boats leave? There's a lot of competition. It's a possibility that they might leave. There's a resource of buildings, riverfront, and it should be part of this planning to know what to do if this happens. That's called planning for the future. Minority participation. I'm all for it. I've always been for it. But the way to do it is to have this company be an overview umbrella of the whole project. And each building is a separate project that is designed by a local minority or majority architect or engineer, goes out for bid. It's small. Minority contractors can bid on it because it's small enough. That's the way to keep the money in town and to distribute it to people who are starting out, not one mammoth projects. And it's going to pull tenants from downtown. If they're going to do some housing or retailing, we got empty buildings. It can be tied to them and make that a part of the project. They talked about a marina, but the drawings I couldn't see what was what. They were so small and not labeled. And they talked.
We'll give you the site where you can go online and see those. Okay.
Okay. They talked about the cleanup of the scrapyard, having to haul the stuff away and clean it and bring it back. And they talked about a marina. Once they evacuate all that soil out of the scrapyard, It's a big hole, and it'll fill with water. That could be a marina and have higher-end apartments around it where they could park their boats in that hole. Excuse me. Can't understand my own writing. The soccer initiative, that's only 2 games a month. You're building that mammoth thing, it's expensive, and it can't return, and it's using up land. But one of the main things that bothers me is the development is not planned or designed to cross bow. It's there because the land is there, but it doesn't really make cross bow the focus and a part of the project. And it should be a linear park that connects the riverfront all the way up to Southern University and down to LSU. It's a string of pearls. Maintenance. Who does the maintenance? It was mentioned, but maintenance is eating this up, eating the city alive. Look at City Hall. If it had, the old City Hall, if it had been maintained, we wouldn't be trying to have to replace it now. There are other local government-owned projects that are not maintained and they're replaced. I was on a bond committee for turning the schools, temporary buildings into permanent buildings. We went out to one school, went in one room, you could look up and see the sky. There was a big hole in the roof, and it had been there for years, but there was no money to maintain it. Any project going forward needs a component that sets up a maintenance fund. The TIF, we need more details on that, because if whoever owns it pays the tax, and if the city owns it, they're paying the tax to themselves. Or if the courthouse is there in the TIF zone, they're paying the tax to the government. So it's really not increasing anything. I might misunderstand it. Amphitheater. We've had a lot of amphitheaters, public and private, built in this town for the last 50 years. They don't work. We don't have the climate. We got mosquitoes. We got rain. We got noise. They go for a little while and they quit. Well, anyway, it is a good team, and they're trying to do a good job, but they are hired by the developers whose goal is bottom line, and they're not getting the input from the citizens on what this would be great for Shreveport. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. That concludes the public comment sector of this committee meeting. Mr. Thompson, let me recognize our school board representative, Mr. Lloyd Thompson. Did you have any remarks, Mr. Thompson?
Lloyd Thompson, P.O. Box 3083, Shreveport, Louisiana. I was not planning on saying nothing, been out of Barksdale all day, but since you put me on the spot, I want to be very clear. I'm not speaking on behalf of school board or the industry. I'm speaking as Lloyd Thompson. I've been in this city for over 30 years from a little old small town. I think it's time that we put our hands to the plow and make this city presentable for our community. I mean, we need new jobs and opportunities for this community. And I've had the opportunity to visit with Paul and Larry and all of them. I like the idea. Whatever the issues is, I think we all need to sit around the table and say issue B, issue A, or whatever, and let's get those issues solved. But at the end of the day, we need this project in Shreveport. Now, you show me another project can come that's going to make a difference, I'm for it.
But I think we need something like this, whether it's Larry and them group or whoever group. I think we need a project like this in our city to make our city on the map for the South, so folks can start to come in our city, patronizing our city, doing great things in our city. I just don't think we ought to shoot down everything to come to our city. I just think we ought to look at how we can make this work at the end of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for those remarks. Yes, sir, you want to say something? Yes, Mr. Friedel.
Good afternoon, good evening. I sat in the back and I listened.
What's your name again, Mr.
Oh, Jerry Fodell, 6319 West 70th Street. 15 years ago, I moved from a city that faced pretty much the same challenges, city of Detroit. And I watched it where it went from pretty much to 100% occupancy in the downtown area. And there was just nothing. It was literally at the end of the day, it was empty. There was nothing. There was no hope. Everything had faded. And I moved here to raise our family. And I thought this would be a great place. And it was a great place to raise our family. 15 years later, my children have to move away to find employment. My son has to move to Houston for oil and gas, and my other son moved to D.C. because the opportunities here are fleeting. I think this project here is needed to some degree. I'm sure the plans can be tweaked. The players are here. The team is here. If you watched 60 Minutes a couple weeks ago, J.P. Morgan, Jamie Dimon, is looking to put real capital into cities like this. You got the people here at the table, Paul Pratt. I've never met Larry, but what I hear, just amazing things can take place here. It seems like we shoot down every opportunity that comes here. If we sit down and we listen how we can make this work, this can work. This really is a viable program here. You got an asset here, which is the river and unused spaces. This really could be done. And it's exciting to see something like this happen. And, I wasn't going to say anything. I was just sitting in the back. It was just like, but something has to be done here, or, we're going to find ourselves, we're almost to the verge of Detroit. But now, if you go back and you see that a team like these guys here that took one project, which was Dan Gilbert, Quicken Loans, and brought their work downtown, and now it's one of the most, amazing metropolitan cities, in the city right now, or in the country right now. It took one team and one company to step out. And these guys, I think, are, they're poised to, you see what they got here in the room here. And it takes, like they say, Marty said, people from around the country with different views and different opinions to do something like this. So, I applaud what they're doing, and I have no dog in the hunt here except to come down here and, listen and give my opinion. So I'm behind it 1,000%.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your remarks. Tyler Jemison is a member of the committee, but he's also the president of the African American Chamber of Commerce, and I need to afford him some remarks.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. English, again for this presentation. Number one, I guess there was a question earlier about minority participation. After speaking with Mr. English about this in particular, we believe that there are enough entities.
Lisa Volume, what is the those in it? Okay.
Hello?
Yeah. Okay.
We believe.
Where you normally sit and we never hear you.
Yeah, that's very true. We believe that with our entities here locally, that there will be no issues with minority participation, especially when you're leaning on Mr. Hall back there. I've had a chance to work with him over the past 5 years, and we trust him. And having somebody like that on your team means a lot. So our stance on this project has not changed. On behalf of the African American Chamber of Commerce, Strategic Action Council, and Minority Supplier Institute. So I want to publicly say that because this has been going on for a long time, and we're ready to move the needle forward. And anything that we can do to do that, you have our support.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And let me say finally that I told you this is my third time sitting in a presentation that investors wanted to develop Cross Bayou. This is the second time as a city councilman. 18 months ago when the Gateway Consortium Group came to this chamber, there was not a crane in Shreveport, not one capital development. I told them that the citizens of this community are skeptical about almost anything. I mean, we've said no and rejected so many things that could have moved this community forward, that could have stimulated our economy. But we became so gun shy. I remember somebody saying that the only thing we have to fear is fear yourself. But after having the United Way to come down to this chamber and to make a presentation and a report on the Alice report, Ms. Moore referenced that. When 18 months ago, we had this discussion and we asked that you go out and put together the apparatus to move this forward. And you come back 18 months later and has assembled the most impressive professionals in their field of expertise that have come to Shreveport. Now, my grandmother once said to those that are saying we can do it, they can do it, anybody can do it, that a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. We've been waiting. The economics, the climate of opportunities in this city is all-time low. Even the goal that we have set in the desire to involve minorities and African Americans in even the current projects has been a challenge. And to say that we can't do something with the help of you, you didn't come in and say we can do something. You came in and said, listen, we can help you if you will allow us to help you. And very seldom do people are allowed to give you a lifeline, throw you a life preserve, and you say, I don't want that life preserve. I think I'll go ahead and do what I can do to survive myself without help. But we can't do it. Now, if this is the ideal project, I don't know. I don't have the answers. But all I know is that on this day, somebody came to town and said, using all of their experiences and expertise, who've done this throughout the country, who have seen it work, and would not be here if they did not feel that it was doable and that it was a win-win-win-win situation. I just can't believe that you would have put in all the resources. I hear $5 million worth of commitment already. Now, there's a scripture that says, where there's no vision, the people perish. I'm going to present this to the council on December the 9th as an introduction that we will enter into an agreement. The details of the legislation have not been developed. It's in the phase of development. I've asked my council clerk and a representative from the Gateway Group to consolidate and come up with what we consider a very what I would consider very appropriate ordinance to enter into this, with stipulations, of course, with merits, of course, so that we will not be totally at risk of having a liability if this doesn't come to fruition. But I think you've given me some basics of what the prerequisites would be. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the city may want or not want. But all I'm saying is that we are at a crossroads. We really are. And I don't want to discourage you. Don't be discouraged. Be hopeful that we can work together to make this happen. So I'm going to present legislation to the full council. The full council, this is being live streamed, and they told me, some of them, that they will be engaging us today. And it's also been, it's on the website, and I think a video of it has been also prepared. So I'm going to introduce it on the night 10th. That's our December council days. And then the first meeting in January, which give us a month after the introduction to work out any modifications, any details in regards to that legislation, to cover any concerns that has been expressed here. And it's my intent that on the 10th of January, make sure that's the right meeting date. No, actually it'll be the 14th. I'm sorry. It'll be January the 14th. That I'm asking the council to give this their highest consideration. And in the interim, either at the December meeting or the January meeting, I would encourage and invite some members of this team to be present and let me give you an opportunity to make any further expressions to the full council, and let them also ask questions. I want this project to be fully vetted. I want it to meet public scrutiny. But I also want to see it come to fruition, because nobody is trying to help us but you. Like I said earlier, it's been years since a crane. Just think about it. You go to Lafayette. They're going to rename Lafayette. The east part of Baton Rouge, New Orleans, other cities within Louisiana are moving and progressing in their economic field development. But we have been stagnated for too long. I don't know if we lost faith in ourselves or hope in ourselves. But I think over the next month and 3 weeks, we can infuse some hope in our city on a project like this. And like Ms. English said, if the council, with the mayor, and I forgot to mention, the mayor is very much aware of this meeting. He's very much aware of this project. I will be meeting with him and his team as well. Hopefully, within the next few weeks, I can have him to make a statement regarding his position on this. But nevertheless, I'm committed to moving forward, because I don't want to sit here until I die in a dying city, as Mrs. Moore has so passionately. That's what I was looking for. So passionately stated. I don't want to sit here. Anybody know my record? I have a 40-year record of community involvement, and I'm just saying it's coming down to the last quarter, and this would be a great infusion of hope in this city. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. Thank you for coming. I bid you a great and happy Thanksgiving. And those that are having to leave, I pray that you return to your destination without any hurt or danger.